In a world searching for gaming knowledge comes the man, the myth, a legend in his own mind, Critical. Welcome back, guys and gals, Critical here. Today I'm bringing you an update video on last Epoch, update 0.5.4, and boys and girls, this one is a big one. Alright, right off the top, they've added the quest system. Quests are tracked in a text overlay on the right side of the screen. Pressing J opens up a window with quest details. So far there are only 3 quests in Chapter 1, and quest rewards will be put in a future patch. Remember, it's a game in alpha. The fact that they even have any kind of questing this early in a game, I'm just glad that they have something. With that said, if you want to get the best experience with these quests, I did ask the developers and they said it'd probably be best to start a new character to experience the game, especially all the changes in Chapter 1. That's right. They've made some changes to the level design. They added multiple side zones in Chapter 1. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything here, okay? You need to go find them. I haven't even found them yet. I did inadvertently trip over one when I was doing my update video, but I went in, took a look for like 2 seconds, and then stepped back out. I'm not going to ruin it. They've done a lot of work on lighting and post-processing effects that are redone for all levels. They redesigned the forest arena, and most of the NPCs in Chapter 1 now have their own models. So every patch they're making improvements to this game, and I love to see that. Speaking of improvements, they've done some optimization. They've greatly optimized the last archive, increasing FPS considerably in that area. They've improved poly counts in many scenes, increasing the game's overall FPS. I had a rather sizable increase in my frames per second. So I am definitely looking forward to playing the game. It's looking better. You can see right here on the screen, I've got my Hungering Souls. They've got a much different look. My Aura of Decay has a different look. I mean, it's just overall, everything is looking better. Now, there's been some changes that I'm not so happy about. Stun changes. Now, the good thing about stun changes, you're not going to get stun locked as much, especially like these spiders right here in the arena. They were constantly stun locking me and basically get me killed. My Stuninator took a big hit. They changed the stun formula. Now, any hit that previously would have a 10% or less chance to stun will no longer stun. Hits are less likely to stun overall. So what does this mean? It doesn't mean that you can't stun, it just means it's more difficult to stun. You have to stack more stun chance, more stun ability if you want to basically play the Stuninator. Now overall, that's not a bad thing. These are some changes, some tweaks, some updates that were actually necessary because, I mean, there was a lot of times where you get continuously stun locked. Hopefully that won't happen as much, but you might have to tweak and or modify a build that you just got done doing a Let's Play and a build guide for. What do you know? Now, another big change that they did was to the mastery and passive skill tree search system. So before you had to manually go through all the notes trying to find what you're looking for. Now they've added a search function that allows you to type in poison or stun. And in this case, you can see there's nothing in Hungering Souls that stuns. So if I was trying to build some kind of stun into my build, Hungering Souls isn't the ability that I'm looking for. But if I just want to buff damage, I can type damage in, and now you can see that all the nodes that have damage in their title or affect damage are highlighted, making it easier for me to try to figure out what skills I want to use and how I want to level those skills. Now here, I'm going to search for damage again. And in Wandering Spirits, all the nodes that have damage in them, that buff damage, will pop up. And if I look for stun, once again, there's no stun. But then I remembered, in Rip Blood, there actually is one node that has stun. There, I was able to figure out which skills I can use if I want to stun somebody and what nodes I need to take to actually improve my possibility of actually stunning them. They also added this function to the passive tree. So if I look for stun, this ability doesn't allow me to stun anybody, but it does help protect me if I get stunned. But what if I want to poison somebody? And of course, this is the build that I'm trying to do, is poison. And then all the nodes that have anything to do with poison pop up. Now, when I was doing this video, this node right here, I never even looked at this one. I like the idea of this node. Oh my God, every minion that dies, I can possibly summon another minion from their corpse. That's a skill I'm gonna have to take for this build. And I didn't even know that skill was there until I did this video. That's why this search function is so cool. It opens your eyes to some of the possibilities that you might have missed that your passive tree can provide you, that you never even thought to look at. I didn't even know that node was there. So for me, I love this update. Now, the tooltips for your skills did cause a lot of confusion in the past. They fixed that. The nodes that change a skill's damage type and or sub abilities that deal a different damage type now update the skill tags on its tooltip. Basically what that means is if you're using skeletons, summon skeletons, and summon skeletons has a range of different damage types based on the skeletons that you can summon. If you get rid of the mage, if you make it so that you can't summon skeletal mages, you only want to summon skeletal warriors, then you'll lose that magic tag that's on the summon skeleton ability. This way you're not confused by, does my skeletons do magic damage or necrotic damage, or are they only doing physical damage? The skeleton warrior only does physical damage. This is why this tooltip update is very important, especially when somebody's trying to learn the game for the first time or figure out how the skills work. Now, speaking of skills, we have a little bit of love for our mage and knight classes. Flame Reave and Lunge both have skill trees now. So if you were playing one of these classes and you kind of dabbled, you're like, well, that's kind of interesting, but I want to wait until they get a skill tree so I can see what its real power is. There you go. Time to bring that mage out of retirement and check out its new skills. The knight's shield rush ability has been changed. It's now a channeled ability, meaning that when you initiate the charge, you're going to hold down that key and you'll charge until you either hit a fixed object, run out of mana, or let go of the button, and at that point you will initiate a area of an effect attack. Now, you can't turn. Once you've started a charge in a particular direction, you're going to keep going straight until you hit something, run out of mana, or let the button go. I, for one, like this change, and I understand that the reason they did it was to make it different from Lunge, because Lunge gives you that rush over and hit an enemy, and that's what Shield Charge was doing. So this makes Shield Charge feel something completely different now. There's been a huge crafting system update. First thing that you need to know is that shards and glyphs drop in the world as loot. So it's not just where you have to go break or shatter items to get shards. Minions, and I have found a ton of shards, glyphs, and even shattering, runes of shattering, no longer shattering stones, from the barrels and boxes around the world. Make sure you're breaking those boxes and barrels. You can buy runes of shattering from the vendor. The vendor almost always has 2 to 4 runes of shattering. They're 1,000 gold a piece. It's actually worth it. I think, you know, with all the gold that I have, I'm going to start buying them anytime I see them. All right, but you can see they've also reworked the artwork on them. It's really cool. So they've added a separate tab for the crafting materials. It contains a slot for each crafted item, does not include the shards. So the actual shards that you see in your crafting menu are still there. This is just for those additional items. Now, if you don't want to sell them, and you want to store them out of your inventory and into your material stash tab, you have to right click it. And you see it's created 1 rune of shattering and it's added to your total. And I'm never going to sell these, so I'm just going to drop them all in there. Now they've added a new crafting item to the game called a support item. So let's say I wanted to craft on this ring. All right, a couple things to note right away. First off, everything that you can actually put on this ring has been moved to the top. All right, all the items in gray are shards that you cannot add to a ring. Anything that is highlighted in this orange/gold color is something that's already on this ring that you have a shard for. So I don't have a shard for minion health. I can actually search now for health. And you'll see the reason that there wasn't a highlighted minion health shard is I don't have one available to add to this item. If I want to see all the shards I have for minions, all I have to do is type it in. Well, I also have to spell it correctly too. Minion damage, minion physical damage, minion health regeneration. So I don't have a shard for that. That's why there's no other shard available highlighted. So I can only do 1 prefix shard for this item because I only have this one. And that's why it's showing me all the suffixes, because I can't put any prefix on it. There's nothing available. Let's switch out to this axe. So we scroll back up and you'll see I have melee void damage shards available and I have melee lightning damage shards available. So those are the 2 prefix that can be applied to this item. That's why they show up. And then the rest is all suffix because I can't put anything else on this. Let me buy a gray item from the vendor. Give me something that doesn't have anything. There we go. Something that doesn't have anything on it whatsoever. So I drop this in my crafting menu. Now you'll see I have a mix of prefix and suffixes because those are all available to be put onto this item. So let's say I wanted to add poison protection. So now I've added poison protection. You'll see now it's up at the top of my menu saying, hey, you already have this. Do you want to increase it? Now, let's say I want to add health gained on kill. So you can see this menu is dynamic. It's added the poison protection and the health gained on kill to the top. It's telling me, hey, you have these shards. You want to buff this, but now you can't see any more suffix because you only have prefix slots available. So let's do poison damage. All right, so we're tossing poison damage on there. Now I'm up to a 15% for a minor fracture. I think I'm good. I think I'll just go ahead and add, what would I want to add onto this? If I was creating this item, I want to, let's go for critical strike chance. All right, I'm up to 20. Now you'll see everything else is grayed out. I have no available slots, so everything is grayed out except for the items I can actually add to it. Now I'm starting to get a little high for, I'm up to 20% chance for a minor fracture. Now there's a couple things I can do. I can use a glyph of stability. This glyph of stability causes the modifier to add 80% less to 40% more. So it's basically a gamble. And you use this up no matter what. So it can cause 80% less fracture chance, or it can cause 40% more fracture chance. Glyph of the Guardian. Okay, so Glyph of the Guardian is an interesting one. If a fracture occurs, the tier of that fracture is reduced by 1. This glyph is always expended when crafting. Now, let's say I've got to a point where, and I don't have any more glyphs of stability, and I've got, T4 on T5 on everything but poison protection. and I want to buff that poison protection one last time. I want to be on the safe side. So I click that, I'd have this glyph in, and if it did fracture, the severity of the fracture, the tier of it, would be reduced by 1. This might not save the item, this might not save a lot, but it can mitigate some of the, oops, I did it again, that happens when you're when you're trying to craft items. When you're first trying to figure out how crafting works in this game, their help area was a little confusing in some ways. But if you click on the question mark, you get a nice menu that pops out. It really gives you a good rundown on the nuances on crafting shards, shattering items, crafting with shards, and fracturing. So if you're not sure on what you're doing or what you're about to do, how that's going to change your item, you can go in here and read up on that. Something else that was kind of hard to understand, shards in the shard list that add a single stat now always have added or increased after their names for clarity. So you'll see they've added void damage increased, poison protection added, melee damage increased. And when you're trying to figure out what you want to do with an item or what type of craft that you want to do, that is actually really important. Now, something else that's really nice, I'm going to take this and drop into there. Okay, so I've dropped a shattering stone in there. I've got 4 different shards applied. I have a poison damage, critical strike chance, poison protection, and health gained on kill. Now, when I shatter this item, there's going to be that normal number of shards that you got, but pay attention to this lower area of the screen. It tells me the number and the type of each shard that I got. All right, guys and gals, I have barely scratched the surface of this update. There are so many other bug fixes, improvements, skill changes, ability changes. You need to get some of those tunes that you've been leaving just on the shelf and take them out and see if there's something new. You might find a new build. You might find that the build that you could get to wave 1000 in the arena can no longer do it. They've added visual improvements on when you're hitting a target. Right now I'm going to use Rip Blood on these spiders, and you can see that there's a flash as that area of effect happens. It's splashing and causing a damage render to happen on each of those models, which tells you that, okay, that spreading of that ability, the way Rip Blood is supposed to splatter and hit everything, is actually happening. I'm loving this update. I hope you guys enjoy this update, and I hope you enjoy this content. If you have, drop a like, consider subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Bye.